All right. Welcome to Vikas Web channel. And as you saw in the thumbnail and in title, that this video is about a better or advanced way of calling API. Usually, if you are just beginner or if you are just dealing with a smaller project, then in that case, you may be using a different HTTP client, request clients such as Axios, and then all you will be doing is maybe somewhere you will attach axios.headers or such, and then after that you will do axios.get, axios.post, and so on. And that's okay, that's fine. However, if your project is big and you have a lot of routes, for example, you have authentication route, you have users route, you have let's say authors route, and then you have, let's say, books route, and so on, and then even inside each route you have a get method, you have post method, you have update put method, or whatever you like to define. In that case, immediately when you notice that you are going to have a lot of routes in future, it's better to make your API call in such a way that it is scalable, as well as in future when you need to modify, or if you want to go from Axios to something else, then still you don't have to go to each of those places where you have made Axios call and then modify there. So here I am inside VS Code Studio, and I have already created a React TypeScript template project with this command. You can see yarn, and you can also use npm npx create React app, and I'm calling this advanced API call and using TypeScript. So I already have this, so I'm not gonna do this. Next thing is we are going to call, or we are going to make API call, and for that as always I'm going to use this JSON placeholder, especially if you are practicing some projects and you don't have your backend yet. Although in this real case example where you will be needing to call advanced API, then definitely you will have backend, but in this case I will just use this and show you what I mean. Okay, so for this reason, let's go here and then the first thing, let me clear this. So yarn add and Axios. Okay, so we have installed Axios, and that's all we need for this video. Also, I would like to tell you, in a real case scenario, you will have some sort of state management. It can be Redux or context, and then you have store. Okay, you will have a store, and you will have action, and you will have reducer. So mainly you will make your API calls inside action and then save state using reducer, right? So most of your API calls, or in case like all of your API calls will take inside action. So if you are using Redux, then you might be using Redux thong for making asynchronous call or async call, or also Saga. Okay, however, this video is not about that. If you want to know more about Redux state management, then definitely I will recommend you to watch my another video which I have already done about Redux. But today what we will be doing is we will be just calling first Axios request here, and for that we are here in our JSON placeholder. So I will be getting post. Okay, so let's go and let's see Axios. Okay, so the first thing we can do is let's have a state, and this state I will call post, and then that will also have a setter function, and that will be coming from React use state, and initially it's an empty state. Okay, so the next we will use React use effect, and then what I would like to do is I would like to do Axios and then get, and then we have to give a URL, so we can have our URL, and that URL is nothing else than this. So that's all we need. Okay, so we have post, and this is enough for our example. Obviously I could also try to get a separate router where I will be having each post by ID, so we will get one layer and so on. So just to show you a lot of routes, but as I said, that's not the part of this video. So what I would like to do is, here I would like to call some folder called services. Many people also like to call it repositories, so it's up to you what name you would like to give it. Okay, and inside here I will also create another folder, and that folder can be HTTP client. Okay, and then again inside here I would like to call something called index.ts. Okay, so first let's go inside our HTTPS clients, and there what I can do is I can have also index.ts file there. And now what we can do inside here is we can import our HTTP client. In this case we have Axios. Okay, and then here what you can do is you can do all the attach, or things like authorization token and other common stuffs. Okay, so for example, let's say we have token from local storage dot get item, and we have something called token. Okay, and then we can check if we have token from local storage, we can definitely create one token there just for test, or additionally you can also do so that we can have let token, and that will be empty string in like initially, and then we can do the token from there. So now let's do export default, and then we can do Axios dot, and there is something called create. Okay, first thing here is base URL. Okay, so the base URL in our case is this, not post but the main one. Okay, so let's go. Additionally you can also have env variable and do that. Similarly, another is our header, and then we have authorization, and we can do token. Okay, and then I'm getting this export.default. So this is all done, and in future if you want to do more thing, if you want to have any config here or such that for each request you want to check what is the response, or refresh token logic and everything, you can do all of those inside this. So, and the beauty about this is, in future let's say you change Axios to Fecth, or let's say you decide to go and use another client. For example, there is this Monday. Okay, so if you do it, it has also basically the same thing. So users and global option, and it gets get, so you can import Monday and you can do all of this. So let's say you decide to change this, well, that would be easy because you will just change that and then maybe modify this path, and that's all right. Okay, so we have this. Now what we can do is the first simple thing, what many people probably already do is now we get Axios from here. Okay, or we can even call it anything. So instead of us calling Axios from here, what we can do is we can still have Axios, but in this case we can have it from services and HTTP client. Okay, and now okay, so all we can additionally do like this. Okay, so now we have, if we refresh, you see we are getting basically the same thing. However, okay, let me save that. I'm getting some problem here. Okay, we have this index, and that's why we are getting complaints. For now, let's just delete that, and now if you see, it's the same thing. So now the good part of this is, since we already have our base URL here, what we can do is we actually don't need to even give it here. Instead of all this, what we can just say is we can say posts, and you see we get the same thing, right? So that's the beauty. Now you don't have to repeat this URL everywhere, like this full URL. You have the base URL, and let's say in future your company, your backend guys, they decide to change it, and let's say they decide to have like version 1 or version 2. All you need to do is just change that in one place, and that will reflect the change everywhere else, as long as the path, for example this post and everything is same, right? This is good. But what if your company also decide to change this post to, let's say, something else? Well, then you will have a problem. Also, what if you need to make this Axios same request, basically exactly the same request in multiple places? Okay, in some cases when we are using state management, we will be getting all those in our actions, and that action can be get post action or something. However, there can be also chance that you are still replicating this inside multiple actions. There can be situation that first you have to make a post, and after that you want to fetch all the posts again or such. So for that, we will start using even better approach, and that is called services. I will give index.ts here, and here inside for each route we will also have something called, let's say, backend constant. Okay, so what is this backend constant? Additionally, you can put this constant in somewhere else, but I'll put it here. So what we will do is we will export default, and then what's wrong with my spelling? So here what you can do is you can have all the, for example we have post, and there's nothing else than post. So basically we will define the constant for each of our path. So we have post, and then similarly we have comments. Okay, so let's go, and then let's do comments, and we can do similarly for users and to-dos. For now, let's just do this users, and we have to-dos. Okay, so we created constant, and you don't need to, you can basically write this instead of writing the constant here. You can basically just write the text post. But you know, the good thing about having constant is, let's say a new guy, a new person, a new developer, he or she joins to your project. Okay, in that case they can just go to this constant file, and from there they can see all the possible backend routes they can use, right? So that's a good thing. And also in future, if you need to modify let's say from comments to something else, then you just do it in one place, and it will reflect everything. So that's a good thing. The next thing is, for each of our this route we will call some sort of services. Okay, so let's call, for first we can have post service, and it can be TS. So now here what I can do is, first I can get our HTTP client. Okay, so we can also call it Axios like we did here. However, as I said, in future we can also change Axios to something else. There can be new thing coming, so I don't want to restrict the name, so I would like to call it HTTP client, but you can definitely call it Axios. And then also let's import certain things, actually backend constant. From backend constant I can see that I have backend constant. Yep, and so I have backend constant here, and then from there all I want is just destructure the constant I need, and that will be nothing other than post. Okay, so all I'm doing is just taking this post, which is equals to this, and it might seem that a lot of work just we could have basically just done const post equals to post. That would have been also fine, but as I said, it might take some setup in the beginning, but we are talking about bigger project here, and trust me, when you have everything here, then it's a lot easier to know what are the things, what are the routes, what are the path, and so on. So the next thing, let's export API call for post route. Okay, so again, this is just going to be a simple object method. So now this is the interesting part. So let's say the first thing is get all post. That's what we did here, right? So this is what we did. So we can do the same thing. Let's say get all posts, or you can even just write get all, and we don't need to have any argument. And what we can do here is we can do return, and then we can use HTTP client, and from there you can use get, and then we can just use post. This is same as we doing axios.get, and then we are having this whole URL here. This is the same thing. However, now we have everything inside our HTTP client, which is saving our all the base URL and everything. And on top of that, we also have this post as our backend constant, so we don't need to do all this. And let's also remove that, and we have this. Similarly, let's say you have to get post by ID. You can do get post by ID, and then you can do so. Let's, since this is object, and in that case we want post ID, or let's just say ID, right? And this is a TypeScript, so we can say we need a string. Then you need to do the same thing, get, and then you can do something like that. And here you can have post, and then you can also have ID, and that's it. Similarly, let's say you have to make post request, okay? So what you can do, if we go here, and then these are the routes, and we can make a post request. Okay, so what you can do is, let's say, create a new post. All right, so you can say here is create, right? And then you can pass all the payload. And additionally, if you see, when we are making a post request, we want to also have user ID, right? So you can be payload, and then user ID string. Payload will be definitely object here, and string, and then you can do the same thing, HTTP client dot this time post, and then again we can use our this route, and then you can say the payload, and then the payload can be everything what we have in payload plus user ID as user ID. Okay, so I'm hoping this is what, and then this payload will have basically title, that's a string, and then body, that's a string. So that's all this will have, and then this will be user ID. So when we are posting this in database will automatically create the post ID, but then we are sending title, body, and user ID, and it will update. Okay, so now we have all these things, and similarly we can do the same thing. Similarly, we can also copy paste and then modify this post service to, let's say, we have users. Okay, so we can do the same thing, user service, and then instead of this post, what I can do is we have users. All right, so as you can see, we already have get all users. That's coming from get post by ID. I can say this get user by ID, and then we have users and ID, and similarly create a new user. Okay, get user by ID. So we have payload, and let's go and let's see what we need for users. So if we go to our, in case of user, we have a lot of things going on like ID, name, and everything. So I will just call this, instead of this, object, and probably we don't need this user ID. So all we pass is just payload. Okay, so now you have users. And then here what we can do is we can do export default, right? Well, first of all, let's import all our repositories. So what we can do is here we can import post service. We can also import user service, and then here we can do so that if it is users, then that will be post service. Similarly, no, sorry, if it is users, then all we are doing is we are using user services, and then if it is post, we are using post services, and that's all. Now this gets interesting. Let's say we have to modify this now because we don't need all of this. So first thing first, let's go here and then let's import. Okay, now we can import two things. We can import this as something. So let's just go and do services from, and that will be from services. All right, so we don't have Axios. So what we can do is, well, we can do services dot post, right, dot, then we have get all post. Okay, and that's enough. Now you can do is dot then. So basically we can do the same thing. We can have response, and then we can do make the same thing such as set. You know what, I can basically just copy this and then I can delete this. All right, now let's save it and let's see what are the warning we are getting, and we are not getting warning, any warning. All right, additionally, instead of doing all this, what we can do is here we can have post service, and then that can be services dot post, and then we can do that. Instead of this, we can just write that, so we don't have to repeat a lot of that. And here you see we have the, and just with this now you can see that if we need something else like user service, all we need to do is services dot users, and then let's say we also want to have something similar, users, set users, and that will be our React user state. And for now I'm going to keep it empty, and then similar to this we can also fetch all users. This should be use effect, Okay, so here inside we can have basically the same thing. So just like that, we have user service. So user service dot, we have also get all users, get users by ID, all users, because that's what we are saving, dot then response, and then no, not like that, this is a function response, and then we can do set users, and that will be response dot data. All right, so now okay, so let's comment our users, and then now let's do basically the same thing. If we have users, so this is what I'm going to do then, and then let's give the key user.id, and then we can have h1. No, actually we don't need h1. We can have p tag, and then we can have user.name. That's all we want, and then we save it, and if you go and see, we have all the users now. So as you can see that as our application grows, you can create more and more services. At the moment we have post services, user services, you can add more constant here, and then you can create like to-do services, comment services, and inside also services you can have get all, get by ID, create, also similar to what we have example here. If I go back, then we have put, we have patch, we have delete. So we can do all those requests here just like you would do http axios.delete, axios.client, same thing. But the only good thing about this is you have all the requests organized here, so doesn't matter whether you are using them directly inside component, or doesn't matter whether you are using them in state management. Wherever you are using it, you have single source, single function, single method for getting all the posts, single method for getting all the posts by ID, and same for the creating, same for the delete, same for the update, and so on for each of your routes. And imagine in future you have to make modifications such as some of the path here, or you have to make modification such as change your Axios client to something else, then you just need to change these. And similarly, let's say if your base URL changes and you wanna put something here, then also you have all this good. So this way your application can scale and you can do much more. I really hope this video was useful for you, especially if you are in a level where you want to advance your React or even Vue or any other platform. It really doesn't matter. It can be also in plain vanilla JavaScript, but with this way, with this approach, you definitely can do a scalable, bigger approach of your API calls. There are other better practices as well, but for this video, this is all. Already it's getting super longer. I always try to make videos short, but somehow I don't know, I cannot, because I feel like I want to say everything. So also comment it out if the video is too long. And if you like this kind of content, please like this video and subscribe my channel. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. Keep coding. Bye bye.